Hello everyone, David here. Now we are going to listen to podcast news which includes national, international and business, economy, news. While walking in the morning or evening, while cooking, cycling or during free time you can listen. It will enhance your learning and understanding of various accents and pronunciations. Listening improves the quality of communication and comprehension. Before going ahead, I would like to welcome you all to the virtual school. A new way of learning and teaching, with the vision of let's grow together. Our mission is to learn how to learn and teach how to teach. So stay tuned. And here we go. June 17, 2021. Important national news. Delhi police move SC against bail to 3 students in riots case. They were booked under the UAPA after protests against the CAA turned violent. Legal correspondent. 24 hours after getting bail, student activists Devangana Kolata, Natasha Narwal, and Asifik Bultanha are yet to taste freedom as the Delhi police quickly moved the Supreme Court on Wednesday against their release. The virtual Court of Sessions Judge Ravinder Bedi heard the students' lawyers press for their immediate release, saying they could not be made to spend another night in jail after getting bail. But the police objected, saying they should not be released until the outstation addresses of the 3 students and their sureties were verified. In short, the police sought more time to file its verification report. Sessions Judge Ravinder Bedi recorded that he had heard both sides at considerable length and put up the case for orders at 4:45 p.m. However, at 6 p.m., the judge said his court had to go through a rather heavy board of bail applications and thus could not pass orders in the case. The judge went on to post the case for orders on Thursday at 11 a.m. Solicitor General Tushar Mehta is likely to mention the appeal against the bail order in the Supreme Court on Thursday. The police, in their appeal in the Supreme Court, claimed the High Court had lost sight of the evidence in the case. It was not a simple protest by students. There was evidence of terrorist activity. Seeking an immediate stay of the HC order, the police said it would otherwise affect all other cases registered by the National Investigation Agency under the UAPA. In fact, the High Court had made particularly sharp observations in its June 15 order, accusing the government of blurring the line between rightful dissent and terrorism. The police arrested Jawaharlal Nehru University students and Pinjara Todd members Ms. Narwal and Ms. Kolata last year. Mr. Tanha, a Jamia Millia Islamia University student, was taken into custody in May 2020. They were booked under the Draconian Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, UAPA, in connection with the Delhi riots that broke out last year after protests against the Citizenship Amendment Act, CAA, turned violent. It appears that in its anxiety to suppress dissent and in the morbid fear that matters may get out of hand, the state has blurred the line between the constitutionally guaranteed right to protest and terrorist activity, the High Court said on June 15. Excess deaths in TN over 4 times official COVID-19 tally 60,773 more fatalities during second wave. Srinivasan Ramani Ramyakannan Chennai. The number of excess deaths registered by the Civil Registration System, CRS, in Tamil Nadu ever since the COVID-19 pandemic hit, from April 2020 to May 2021, is 6.2 times the official reported figure of 24,232 deaths. But in data accessed by the Hindu, the CRS recorded the number of deaths due to COVID-19 as 35,807, 14,652 in 2020 and 21,155 till May 2021, possibly adjusted over the months, an increase of nearly 47% in the deaths reported in the State Health Bulletin. After omitting deaths due to causal factors unrelated to COVID-19, it is estimated that there were 1,61,581 excess deaths amounting to an undercount factor of 4.5 for the pandemic period April 2020 to May 2021. In the second wave, April and May 2021, alone, the CRS registered 20,158 COVID-19 deaths, but it was found that this was undercounted by a factor of 3, as the estimated excess deaths for this period were 60,773. The undercount factor for 2021 was 3.7. Excess deaths in Tamil Nadu were calculated based on the month-wise number of deaths registered by the CRS from January 2018 to May 2021, besides utilizing year-wise data from 2015. Data accessed by the Hindu included cause-wise deaths registered in the CRS and medically certified deaths data. Close to 45% of deaths were medically certified in the state as of latest data from 2019. Cabinet panel approves additional fertilizer subsidy one-time measure to provide relief. Special Correspondent, New Delhi. The Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs has approved the proposal to hike subsidy rates for phosphorus and potassium-based fertilizers by 140% in a bid to provide relief to farmers as the Kharif sowing season begins. The estimated additional subsidy burden is around 14,775 Indian rupees crore, with the centre emphasising that this is a one-time measure as part of COVID-19 relief. Unlike urea, where the centre sets a fixed maximum retail price, non-urea fertilizer prices are decontrolled, with the centre fixing nutrient-based subsidy rates. So far, a 50 kg bag of diammonium phosphate, DAP, the fertilizer most popular with Indian farmers after urea, was sold at 1,200 Indian rupees, including a subsidy of about 500 Indian rupees. However, the bull run in the global commodity markets has seen a surge in prices of the imported raw materials as well as the finished fertilizer. In early April, a number of Indian fertilizer companies hiked their DAP prices to 1,900 Indian rupees per bag. Farmers groups protested against the Indian rupee 700/bag hike, pointing out that their input costs for the Kharif season would spiral out of control. Soon, drones might ferry vaccines. ICMR invites expression of interest. Difficult terrain, health workers on a vaccination drive in Tral village of South Kashmir. Nisar Ahmed. Jagriti Chandra, New Delhi. Drones could soon be used for delivering COVID-19 vaccines in remote and hard-to-reach geographies in the country. The Indian Council of Medical Research, ICMR, has invited expression of interest from drone operators to develop a delivery model. ICMR's head of epidemiology and communicable diseases, Dr. Samirun Panda, said the aim was to develop a model through a pilot project that could be emulated and adopted by the state governments. The ICMR had conducted a feasibility study in collaboration with the IIT Kanpur. We need smart vaccination instead of mass vaccination to stem an epidemic. For this, we need to focus not only on areas where the infection is intense but also on places where there are indications that the test positivity rate is still low, and that if you saturate the priority groups there through innovative vaccine delivery mechanism, you can stop a surge. This is known as ring fencing, Dr. Pandit told The Hindu. Technical specifications. The tender document lays down the technical specifications required, which include the ability of drones to fly beyond visual line of sight, VLOS, carry a payload of up to 4 kilograms and cover a distance of up to 35 kilometers. While government rules now permit only those drone operations that are within visual range, the ICMR project comes at a time the Ministry of Civil Aviation has allowed 20 entities to conduct trials for long-range or beyond visual line-of-sight drone flights. UP Police book Twitter, news portal, journalists row over assault on elderly man. Special Correspondent, Lucknow. Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath on Wednesday accused Congress leader Rahul Gandhi of spreading poison in society over his tweet after the state police ruled out a communal angle in the assault and humiliation of an elderly Muslim man in Ghaziabad recently. The police lodged a FIR against social media site Twitter, news portal The Wire, journalists Saba Naqvi and Rana Ayub, fact-checker Mohammed Zubair of Altnews, and 3 others associated with the Congress for allegedly sharing on Twitter a video of the incident and giving it a communal color without verifying the details. The FIR was lodged against them under sections 153, 153A, 295A, 505, 120B and 34 of the IPC. The police said Abdul Samad Saifi was allegedly beaten up by the accused, who included both Hindus and Muslims, as they were unhappy with the effects of a ta'iz, amulet, provided by him. It was an interpersonal dispute, claimed the Ghaziabad police, dismissing the allegations made in a video of the incident, in which the victim alleged he was made to chant Jai Shri Ram. Delhi government to start Lighthouse project for marginalized youth. It will help them acquire skills for better employability. Special Correspondent, New Delhi. The Delhi government on Wednesday said that the Delhi Skill and Entrepreneurship University, DSEU, will identify youth in low-income or slum communities in the city to help them make more informed life choices and acquire necessary skills for improved employability. Community growth. By partnering with Pune-based non-profit Lighthouse Communities Foundation, the Delhi government will set up lighthouses in Kakeji, Mahkaganj, Madhya Mahal, and Putparganj. DSEU Vice-Chancellor Niharika Vora, speaking about the initiative, said that the university seeks to make education a means for community growth and change. The vision of the DSEU is to intertwine the transformation of the individual and the community. Through the Lighthouse Project, we feel we can take the university closer to the communities, Ms. Vora said. Kakeji MLA Atishi said that the initiative would ensure that children and youth coming from marginalized backgrounds are not left behind. This Lighthouse project will be a joint collaboration between the Delhi Skill and Entrepreneurship University and Lighthouse Communities Foundation, supported by the Delhi Urban Shelter Improvement Board, the government said. Conditions not favorable for monsoon to cover north. IMD cyclonic circulation lies over UP and there is also a western disturbance. Tourists enjoy rainy weather in Shimla on Wednesday. PTI. Press Trust of India, New Delhi. Atmospheric conditions are still not favorable for further advance of monsoon into Rajasthan, remaining parts of Gujarat, Punjab, Haryana, and Delhi, the India Meteorological Department, IMD, said on Wednesday. It said a cyclonic circulation lies over East Uttar Pradesh and neighborhood and there is also a western disturbance. These conditions are not favorable for the advance of monsoon, IMD Director General M. Mohapatra said. Large-scale atmospheric conditions are not favorable for further advance of monsoon into Rajasthan, remaining parts of Gujarat, Punjab, Haryana, and Delhi, the IMD said. However, there could be a slow progress of monsoon into some more parts of Uttar Pradesh during the next 5 days in association with the existing cyclonic circulation over East Uttar Pradesh, the IMD added. Late onset over Kerala. Monsoon has reached Saharanpur in western Uttar Pradesh. The northern limit of monsoon, NLM, continues to pass through Diu, Surat, Nandurbar, Bhopal, Nagaon, Hamirpur, Barabanki, Bareilly, Saharanpur, Ambala, and Amritsar, it added. After making a late onset over Kerala on June 3, 2 days after its normal onset date, the southwest monsoon made a rapid progress covering large parts of area than its normal arrival date there. Chennai Zoo loses another lion to virus. B. Arvind Kumar, Chennai. A 12-year-old male lion, named Pathpanathan, housed in the lion safari area of the Erignur Anna Zoological Park, died due to COVID-19 on Wednesday. Pathpanathan is the second big cat to have died at Vandalur Zoo this month. On June 3, Neela, a 9-year-old lioness, died of the disease. A release from the zoo said the lion tested positive for SARS-CoV-2, as per the report of the National Institute of High Security Animal Diseases, NICID, Bhopal, on June 3. It had been undergoing intensive treatment since then. It had not eaten for the past 5 days, a source said. The zoo administration is in a state of shock after the death of the second lion. Of the 13 lions at the zoo, 2 were responding slowly to treatment, sources said. A forest official said the death of 2 lions and the critical condition of 2 more showed the health management of the zoo in poor light. We are the only zoo in India that has lost 2 lions, the official said. Though 8 lions at a Hyderabad zoo tested positive for the infection, all of them recovered. 6 Maoists killed in exchange of fire in AP security forces seize weapons. Sumit Bhattacharjee Visakhapatnam. 6 members of the CPI, Maoist, were killed in an exchange of fire with the security forces near Thigalamata village in Koyuru Mandal in interior part of Visakhapatnam agency on Wednesday. Among the deceased were 2 divisional committee members, DCM, and 1 area committee member, ACM, rank Cotter. 3 women were among those dead. The slain Maoists were identified as Ranadev alias Arjun, DCM, Sandy Gangia alias Ashik, DCM, Santunakika, ACM, Lalita, and Pig. The security forces seized a huge cache of weapons, including 1 AK-47 rifle, 2 carbines, 2 modified 303 Lee Enfield rifles, 1 country-made pistol, some ammunition, explosive materials, extremist literature, and kit bags. According to Superintendent of Police B. Krishna Rao, the exchange of fire took place when a team from elite anti-Naxal force, Greyhounds, was on a combing operation in Dalai LamaThe. India to launch deep ocean mission with cabinet nod. It is poised to be among the few countries that can launch underwater missions. Deep dive. One component of the mission is tapping deep sea flora and fauna, including microbes. Getty Images/I stock photo. Special CORRESPONDENT New Delhi. The Union Cabinet has approved the long-pending deep ocean mission, which among other things involves developing a submersible vehicle that will allow a crew to plunge 6,000 meters into the ocean and hunt the floor for precious metals. If this works, India will be among a handful of countries able to launch an underwater mission at such depths. In the works since 2018, the mission is expected to cost 4,077 Indian rupees crore over the next 5 years. The estimated cost for the first phase of 3 years, 2021 to 24, would be 2,823.4 Indian rupees crore. The Ministry of Earth Sciences, MOS, will be the nodal ministry implementing this multi-institutional mission. There are 6 components to the program. A manned submersible will be developed to carry 3 people to a depth of 6,000 meters in the ocean with a suite of scientific sensors and tools. An integrated mining system will be also developed for mining polymetallic nodules at those depths in the central Indian Ocean. The exploration studies of minerals will pave way for the commercial exploitation in the near future, as and when commercial exploitation code is evolved by the International Seabed Authority, an United Nations organization, says an accompanying press note. The second component involves developing ocean climate change advisory services, which entails developing a suite of observations and models to understand and provide future projections of important climate variables on seasonal to decadal time scales. Microbes, minerals. The next component is searching for deep sea flora and fauna, including microbes, and studying ways to sustainably utilize them. The fourth component is to explore and identify potential sources of hydrothermal minerals that are sources of precious metals formed from the Earth's crust along the Indian Ocean mid-oceanic ridges. The fifth component involves studying and preparing detailed engineering design for offshore ocean thermal energy conversion, OTEC, powered desalination plants. The final component is aimed at grooming experts in the field of ocean biology and engineering. This component aims to translate research into industrial applications and product development through on-site business incubator facilities. The Deep Ocean Mission was in 2019 envisaged as a 8,000 Indian rupees crore mission, as the Hindu has earlier reported. India has been allotted a site of 75,000 square kilometers in the Central Indian Ocean Basin, CIOB, by the UN International Seabed Authority for Exploitation of Polymetallic Nodules, PMN. These are rocks scattered on the seabed containing iron, manganese, nickel, and cobalt. Being able to lay hands on a fraction of that reserve can meet the energy requirement of India for the next 100 years, say officials at the Earth Sciences Ministry. Karnataka legislature tops with 31 sitting days. Study says it passed 61 bills in 2020. The Karnataka legislature met for an average number of 32 days from the years 2016 to 2019. Tishailendra Bhojak. T. Ramakrishnan Chennai. The COVID-19 pandemic and the consequent lockdown, which affected the functioning of the legislatures of several states last year, had an apparently marginal impact on the working of the Karnataka legislature, if the number of sitting days is an indication. Compared with its average number of sitting days of 32 from 2016 to 2019, the Karnataka legislature, which is bicameral, met on 31 days last year, the highest for any state in 2020, according to a study that covered 19 states. The southern state was followed by Rajasthan, 29 days, and Himachal Pradesh, 25 days. For comparison, Parliament met for 33 days last year. In 2020, the average number of sitting days for the 19 states was 18, which was 11 less than the 4-year, 2016 to 19, average of 29. Kerala, which had the distinction of remaining at the top in the 4 years with an average of 53 days, had only 20 days of sittings of the legislature last year, stated the study report, Annual Review of State Laws 2020, which was prepared by the PRS Legislative Research, PRS, a New Delhi-based think tank. As regards other southern states, Tamil Nadu had met on 23 days against its 4-year average of 35, Andhra Pradesh had met on 12 days, 4-year average of 26, and Telangana had met on 17 days, 4-year average of 25 days. After the lockdown, Karnataka's figure of sitting days of the legislature was 10, Telangana 9, Andhra Pradesh 7, Tamil Nadu 3 and Kerala 2. However, the highest for any state, post-lockdown, was 11 in Chhattisgarh followed by 10 in Himachal Pradesh. Rajasthan, which was the number 2 state in terms of the overall number of sitting days, had met only on 5 days after the lockdown. As for the number of bills passed last year, Karnataka again topped the list with 61 bills, followed by Tamil Nadu, 42, and Uttar Pradesh, 37. For this purpose, appropriation bills were excluded. Among poor performers under this category, Delhi passed only 1 bill, West Bengal passed 2 bills, and Kerala 3 bills. On the duration of time taken to pass bills, the previous year saw 59% of the bills being passed by the legislature of the states on the day of introduction. A further 14% was adopted within a day of being introduced. Only 9% of the bills was passed more than 5 days after introduction, some of which were referred to committees for further examination. In respect of ordinances, data from the 19 states showed that, on average, 14 ordinances were promulgated last year. Take calculated risks with professionalism. Experts speak on digital transformation of law and how students can adapt to it. Archana Subramanian, Chennai. As part of its Career Counseling 2021 series, held along with The Hindu, the Hindustan Institute of Technology and Science, HITS, hosted a webinar on digital transformation of law and how students can adapt to it. Vincent Comrade, Dean, School of Law, HITS, spoke about the evolution of legal education and how it paved the way for dynamic modern innovation. One-on-one classes may have now become virtual, but it is the continuous assessment and pre-recorded materials that are making them emerge as capable students, he said. Yusuf Abdul Karim, Vice President, Emerging Markets and Business Intelligence, LSAC, said globalization had a major impact on education but allowed us to connect meaningfully. Universities are able to collaborate not only in integrating courses but also on the research front. Schools are changing the way they are training their teachers and networking. This transformation is giving way for interdisciplinary courses. Despite breakthrough technologies, the legal sector is taking only baby steps, said Ramanuj Mukherjee, CEO and co-founder, Law Co and I Pleaders. His advice to students was, taking risks is necessary but it should be calculated and done with professionalism. You will be able to see more problems and a lot more solutions with your young minds. Your time is now. The session ended with panelists fielding questions from the audience. The session can be viewed at https://bit.ly/3xq9je2. Adhir Ranjan shouted down at POC meeting. CONG leader attempted to criticize government's vaccination policy. Adhir Ranjan Chowdhury. Sobhana Nair, New Delhi. Public Accounts Committee, POC, chairperson and senior Congress leader Adhir Ranjan Chowdhury was shouted down by BJP and Janata Dal, U, leaders at a meeting held on Wednesday when he attempted to make a political comment criticizing the union government's COVID-19 vaccination policy. The meeting was called to shortlist the subjects that the committee would work on for 2021-22. Political comment. When Mr. Chowdhury rose to make the concluding remarks, it was learnt that he read out a statement, a political comment, criticizing the union government's current vaccination policy and overall alleged mismanagement during the pandemic. He wanted the vaccine production and distribution to be investigated by the committee. As per the panel's rules, no subject can be deliberated upon till there is a consensus among all members. Even before he could read out the second paragraph of the statement, the BJP and the JD.U started shouting at him. The BJP's Bhupendra Yadav, Satyapal Singh, and Rajiv Chandrasekhar, the JD.U.'s Rajiv Ranjan Singh, Dravida Munnetra Kazhagam, DMK, leader TR Balu, the All India Anna Dravida Munnetra Kazhagam, ANK, S. Thumbiduri, Rahul Shivla from the Shiv Sena, Bhartrihari Mathab of the Biju Janata Dal, BJD, and Shakti Singh Gohil from the Congress were the other members. The BJP and JDU members criticized Mr. Chowdhury, stating that the POC was not the platform to make a political comment, sources said. They also reminded him that the meeting was not being telecast to an audience, so it was an useless attempt to score a political point here. Mr. Chowdhury said he was only quoting facts that were already in the public domain. Proceedings very ugly. The shouting match went on in front of the senior officials of the Controller and Auditor General of India, CAG. One of the members who attended the meeting described the proceedings as very ugly and completely avoidable. Earlier, during the meeting, Mr. Balu said since public money had been spent on pandemic management and vaccines, it needed to be investigated. There was no objection from anyone. Because a consensus could not be built, the subject of vaccine production and distribution was not accepted as one of the agendas of the POC for this year. JDU always believed in divisive politics. Efforts were on to break the LJP even when my father was alive, says Chirag Paswan PTI. Special Correspondent, New Delhi. Chirag Paswan on Wednesday accused his uncle, Pashupati Nath Paras, of betraying him, and the Janata Dal U of aiding the Lok Jan Shakti Party, LJP, rebels in crafting the split in the party. Addressing his first press conference since the coup in the party, he sidestepped questions on the BJP's role, but did obliquely express disappointment that the party did not come to his rescue. Mr. Paswan said efforts were on to break the LJP even when his father was alive. Asked if he blamed the JDU, he said, "This is an internal matter of my party. How can I blame anyone if my own party members betray me? But, yes, I cannot deny the role JDU played. They have always believed in divisive politics and engineering defections." Discontent in the party had been brewing since November 2019, when its founder and Mr. Paswan's father, Ram Vilas Paswan, decided to anoint the son to the post of national president. The internal differences peaked soon after his appointment. Mr. Paswan replaced Mr. Paras, who, for long, held the post of the Bihar State Unit Chief with his younger cousin, Prince Raj. The decision to campaign against the JDU and contest the polls alone while remaining in the National Democratic Alliance during the 2020 elections was the last straw. Throughout the poll campaign, Mr. Paswan asserted that he remained in the NDA and loyal to Prime Minister Narendra Modi. He went on to compare his devotion to Mr. Modi as that of Hanuman to Lord Ram. When asked at the Wednesday press conference why he did not seek help from his Ram, Mr. Modi, he said, "If Hanuman has to seek help from Ram, then what is the point of Hanuman or Ram? I am the son of Ram Vilas Paswan. If I was not scared to contest alone back then I have no reason to be afraid today, too," he added. Mr. Paswan said he and his mother, Reena Paswan, made all efforts to keep the party and Parivar, family, together. "When I lost my father, at least I had my uncle. But today that he has also deserted me, I truly became an orphan." He accused Mr. Paras of betraying him when he was suffering from a long bout of typhoid and was debilitated. "They tried to break the party when my father was in the ICU. And, finally, they decided to stab me in the back when I was bedridden," Mr. Paswan added. Rajnath calls for open Indo-Pacific. India supports freedom of navigation in these international waterways, he says. Maritime focus, Rajnath Singh addressing the ASEAN Defence Ministers meeting plus via video conference. PTI. Special Correspondent, New Delhi. India hoped that the Code of Conduct for South China Sea, SCS, being negotiated between the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, and China, would lead to outcomes in line with international law, including the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS, and did not prejudice the legitimate rights and interests of nations that were not party to these discussions, Defense Minister Rajnath Singh said on Wednesday. Maritime security challenges are another area of concern to India. The sea lanes of communication are critical for peace, stability, prosperity, and development of the Indo-Pacific region. In this regard, developments in the South China Sea have attracted attention in the region and beyond, he said at the 8th ASEAN Defense Ministers Plus meeting. India supports freedom of navigation, overflight, and unimpeded commerce in these international waterways, he pointed out. China and ASEAN have set a target of end 2021 to finalize the code of conduct, but recently officials had said it may not be concluded by then. Mr. Singh reiterated India's call for a free, open, and inclusive order in the Indo-Pacific, based upon respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity of nations, peaceful resolution of disputes through dialogue and adherence to international rules and laws. Premised upon the centrality of ASEAN, India supports utilization of ASEAN-led mechanisms as important platforms for implementation of our shared vision for the Indo-Pacific, Mr. Singh observed. He expressed concern at cyber threats like ransomware and cryptocurrency thefts and called for a multi-stakeholder approach, guided by democratic values. Thank you. International news. Biden, Putin hold great power summit. The leaders agree to return their ambassadors to their posts in an attempt to lower tensions. Face-to-face, U.S. President Joe Biden, left, with his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, at Villa Lagrange in Geneva on Wednesday. AP. Agence France-Presse Geneva. U.S. President Joe Biden and Russian President Vladimir Putin concluded their summit meeting on Wednesday between what the American leader called two great powers, wrapping up more quickly than expected. The pair's second sit-down, with aides present on both sides, lasted about 65 minutes. That session was to be divided into two parts with a break in between, but concluded without a second part. The two sides had said they expected to meet for 4 to 5 hours but spent less than 3 hours together, including an opening meeting with just the two presidents and each one's top foreign aide. In a press conference held after the summit, Mr. Putin said they have agreed to return their ambassadors to their posts in a bid to lower tensions. Russia's ambassador to the U.S., Anatoly Antonov, was recalled from Washington about 3 months ago after Biden described Mr. Putin as a killer. U.S. Ambassador to Russia John Sullivan left Moscow almost 2 months ago after Russia suggested he return to Washington for consultations. Mr. Biden and Mr. Putin plunged into the face-to-face talks on Wednesday at a lush lakeside Swiss mansion, a highly anticipated summit at a time when both leaders say relations between their countries are at an all-time low. As the two leaders appeared briefly before media at the start of the meeting, Mr. Biden called it a discussion between two great powers and said it was always better to meet face-to-face. The meeting in a book-lined room had a somewhat awkward beginning. Both men appeared to avoid looking directly at each other during a brief and chaotic photo opportunity before a scrum of jostling reporters. Mr. Biden nodded when a reporter asked if Mr. Putin could be trusted, but the White House quickly sent out a tweet insisting that the president was very clearly not responding to any one question, but nodding in acknowledgement to the press generally. Mr. Putin ignored shouted questions from reporters, including whether he feared jailed Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny. Shaking hands. The two leaders did shake hands. Mr. Biden extended his hand first and smiled at the stoic Russian leader moments earlier when they posed with Swiss President Guy Parmelin, who welcomed them to Switzerland for the summit. Mr. Biden and Mr. Putin first held a relatively intimate meeting joined by U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Each side had a translator for the session, which lasted about an hour and a half. The meeting, after about a 40-minute break, then expanded to include senior aides on each side. Israel strikes Hamas sites in Gaza over incendiary balloons. Palestinian shot dead in West Bank after suspected attack. Fire in the sky, explosions light up the night sky at Khan Yunis in the southern Gaza Strip following shelling by Israel. AFP. Agence France-Presse Gaza City. Israel carried out airstrikes on the Gaza Strip early on Wednesday after militants in the Palestinian territory sent incendiary balloons into the south of the country, in the first flare-up between the two sides since a major conflict killed hundreds last month. The strikes were the first under the new coalition government headed by Naftali Bennett. The uptick in violence came after more than 1,000 Jewish ultranationalist demonstrators bearing Israeli flags poured into Jerusalem's Flashpoint Old City on Tuesday, with scores of police deployed and international monitors urging calm. According to Palestinian sources, the Israeli Air Force targeted at least one site east of Khan Yunis in the south of the Gaza Strip. The military said that in response to the arson balloons, its fighter jets struck military compounds belonging to the Hamas terror organization. It said facilities and meeting sites for terror operatives in Khan Yunis were targeted. There was no indication of any casualties. The military added that it was prepared for any scenario, including a resumption of hostilities, in the face of continuing terror activities from the Gaza Strip. Firefighters said the balloons caused around 20 fires. Tension spilled over to the occupied West Bank, where a Palestinian woman was shot dead after attempting to ram Israeli soldiers with her car and attack them with a knife, the army and the Palestinian Health Ministry said. The ministry said the woman later died of her wounds. The incident took place near Hizma, south of Ramallah, with official Palestinian news website UAPA identifying the woman as Mayafana, 29, from the town of Abu Dis, near Jerusalem. India extends $100 million loan to Sri Lanka. It will help in solar power coverage. Mira Srinivasan, Colombo. India and Sri Lanka on Wednesday signed an agreement for a $100 million loan from the Export-Import Bank of India to support the island nation's efforts to expand solar power coverage. Issuing a press statement on the bilateral initiative, the Presidential Media Division said one of the key plans of the government was to generate solar power, with the contribution of state-owned buildings, places of worship and houses of the low-income families. Steps will also be taken to provide facilities to store solar energy in batteries for the low-income families that are unable to access the national power grid, the statement said. Sri Lanka has an installed capacity of 4,213 MW of power. While 1,400 MW of that is hydropower, some 900 MW is produced from coal. Over the last 5 years, Sri Lanka has sought to tap more renewable sources of power, particularly solar power. The country's electricity demand is expected to grow at an average 5.3% from 2015 to 2034, according to the Public Utilities Commission. A press release from the Indian High Commission in Sri Lanka said the $100 million line of credit will help finance various projects Sri Lanka's solar energy sector, including those announced at the founding conference of the International Solar Alliance, ISA, held in March 2018, in New Delhi, such as rooftop solar photovoltaic systems for households and government buildings. As many as 89 countries, including Sri Lanka, signed the framework agreement of the ISA, jointly launched by the Prime Minister Narendra Modi and former French President François Hollande in 2015, with the aim of bringing together countries to promote large-scale deployment of solar energy. The line of credit extended by India, according to officials, is for a period of 20 years, with an interest of 1.75%. Sri Lanka owes about $960 million in debt repayment. China to send first crew to space station. Associated Press. The 3 members of the first crew to be sent to China's space station say they're eager to get to work making their home for the next 3 months habitable, setting up testing and experiments and preparing for a series of spacewalks. The 3 met reporters on Wednesday from inside a germ-free glassed-in room, hours before they were to blast off on Thursday morning. First of all, we need to arrange our home in the core module, then get started on a whole range of diagnostic tests on crucial technology and experiments, said Mission Commander Nai Hung, 56, who is making his 3rd trip to space. Liu Boming, 54, whose one previous flight in 2008 included China's first spacewalk, said there would be multiple such activities during the mission as the astronauts prepare the Tianhe, or Heavenly Harmony, core module to receive 2 other modules to be sent up next year. China offers glimpse of Tibetan life without the Dalai Lama. The Communist Party has been trying to Sinicise Tibetan life. The Dalai Lama. Associated Press. Lhasa. A brisk wind ruffles yellow prayer flags as dozens of Tibetans, some on crutches, circle a shrine in a time-honored Buddhist ritual. Across the street, a red banner spells out a new belief system, one being enforced with increasing fervor, of China's ruling Communist Party. Xi Jinping's new socialist ideology with Chinese characteristics is the guide for the whole party and all nationalities to fight for the great rejuvenation of China, the sign proclaims in Tibetan and Chinese script, referring to China's leader, who has sought to put his imprint on virtually every aspect of life across the vast county. Lately, that has increasingly encompassed religion, both in central China and on its fringes, such as Tibet. The party is pressing a program to Sinicise Tibetan life to separate Tibetans from their language, culture, and especially, their devotion to the Dalai Lama, Tibet's traditional spiritual leader who has lived in exile since 1959. In the sun-drenched courtyard of the Jadhav temple, one of the holiest sites in Tibetan Buddhism, the head monk, Lhakpa, said the Dalai Lama is not its spiritual leader. Asked who is, he said, Xi Jinping. The Associated Press joined a rare and strictly controlled media tour to Tibet highlighting what the government describes as the social stability and economic development of the region after 70 years of Communist Party rule. Stops included monasteries, temples, schools, poverty alleviation projects and tourist sites. That appears to reflect the party's confidence that it is prevailing in the global battle of public opinion over Tibet. As a counterweight, Tibet rights groups continue to report detentions, economic marginalization, a suffocating security presence and heavy pressure to assimilate with China's Han majority while pledging loyalty to the Communist Party. In the model village of Beiji east of Lhasa, the capital, residents dressed in traditional garments told foreign journalists how poverty alleviation campaigns had changed their lives. Time has changed, so people's demands have changed. People needed religious beliefs as their spiritual sustenance in old times, but now we don't, said Tsering Yudrin, 25, an accountant. Tibet has eradicated extreme poverty, reads a 2019 government report on Tibet. People now lead better lives and live in contentment. A brand new socialist Tibet has taken shape. Field narrows as Iran poll candidates Qutardliner Raisi seen as front-runner. Associated Press Tehran. Iran's presidential contest headed towards a showdown between the country's hardline judiciary chief and moderate former central bank chief on Wednesday, as two candidates dropped out on the last day of campaigning to clear the path for the challengers. Mohsen Mehralizadeh, the only reformist candidate in the vote, as well as hardline contender Ali Reza Zaghani withdrew from the race, state media reported, leaving just 5 candidates in the field ahead of Friday's vote. Such dropouts are common in Iranian presidential elections in order to boost the chances of similar candidates. The departure of 64-year-old Mr. Mehralizadeh, who served as governor in 2 Iranian provinces, is aimed at consolidating support for top banker Abdolnasir Hemedi, who has positioned himself as a leading moderate and stand-in for President Hassan Rouhani, who is term-limited from running again. Polling and analysts indicate that Mr. Hemedi lags behind hardline Judiciary Chief Ebrahim Raisi, the presumed front-runner long cultivated by Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khomeini. Also ending his campaign, Mr. Zaghani, a 55-year-old hardline lawmaker twice rejected from running for president, threw his support behind Mr. Raisi. I consider him, Raisi, to be the most qualified, Mr. Zaghani was quoted as saying by state TV. Other candidates were expected to follow suit later on Wednesday. Over 200 lawmakers in parliament, which is dominated by hardliners, released a statement urging the rest of the conservative candidates to withdraw and back Mr. Raisi's presidential bid. Mr. Mehralizadeh, the pro-reform candidate, had previously served as vice president in charge of physical education under reformist President Mohammad Khatami and as a deputy in the Atomic Energy Organization of Iran, which runs the country's civilian nuclear program. EU nod for more Belarus sanctions. Reuters Brussels. The European Union agreed additional sanctions on Belarus on Wednesday in response to the forced landing of a Ryanair flight in Minsk and the arrest of a dissident journalist on board in May, an EU diplomat said. The sanctions, approved by EU ambassadors and to be adopted by the bloc's foreign ministers at a meeting on Monday, target 7 individuals with links to the Belarus aviation sector, according to the diplomat. EU ambassadors also signed off on a 4th package of asset freezes and travel bans, to be imposed on more than 70 Belarusian individuals in response to last year's contested presidential election, the diplomat said. This 4th package of measures was already being prepared when the Ryanair jet was forced to land in Minsk on May 23 and opposition blogger Roman Protasevich and his girlfriend were arrested by Belarusian authorities. EU governments described the incident as air piracy and, at the start of June, banned Belarusian airlines from flying over European Union territory or having access to its airports. The latest listing of 7 individuals is meant as a stopgap measure while economic sanctions are discussed to inflict real punishment on President Alexander Lukashenko. No radiation leak from nuclear plant, Beijing. Associated Press Beijing. A Chinese nuclear power plant near Hong Kong had 5 broken fuel rods in a reactor but no radioactivity leaked, the government said on Wednesday in its first confirmation of the incident that prompted concern over the facility's safety. Radiation rose inside the number 1 reactor of the Taishan nuclear power plant in Guangdong province but was contained by barriers that functioned as planned, the Ministry of Ecology and Environment said. The French co-owner on Monday reported increased noble gases in the reactor. Experts said that suggested fuel rods broke and leaked radioactive gas produced during nuclear fission. Pakistan court adjourns Jadhav's case till October 5. Kulbhushan Jadhav. Press Trust of India Islamabad. A Pakistani court has adjourned till October 5 the hearing of a government's plea to appoint a counsel for Indian death row prisoner Kulbhushan Jadhav on request of the country's top law officer, according to a media report. Mr. Jadhav, the 50-year-old retired Indian Navy officer, was sentenced to death by a Pakistani military court on charges of espionage and terrorism in April 2017. On Tuesday, the Islamabad High Court adjourned the hearing of the government's plea to appoint counsel for Mr. Jadhav till October 5 at the request of the Attorney General for Pakistan Khalid Javed Khan, the Express Tribune reported. The High Court also issued notice to the Council of the Indian High Commission to appear before the court on the next date of hearing. Kim warns of tense food situation. Associated Press. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un warned about possible food shortages and urged the country to brace for extended COVID-19 restrictions as he opened a political conference to discuss national efforts to salvage a broken economy, the official Korean Central News Agency said on Wednesday. The North's economy has deteriorated amid pandemic border closures, which choked off trade with China, while devastating typhoons and floods last summer decimated crops. Thank you. Economy news. Direct tax receipts jump. This FY surge reflects healthy exports, dispute resolution schemes impact, economists. Returns spur hope, tax figures indicate the GDP will grow in double digits in Q1, says ICRA's Nair. GRN Somashikar. Special Correspondent New Delhi. India's direct tax receipts in the first 2.5 months of 2021-22 have doubled to almost 1 Indian rupee and 86 cents lakh crore from the comparable period last year when the national lockdown hit collections, the Finance Ministry said on Wednesday. Economists said the tax figures suggest the economy could post double-digit growth in the first quarter. The jump in the direct tax collections reflects healthy exports and a continuation of various industrial and construction activities, given the lower stringency of the staggered regional lockdowns in 2021 versus the nationwide lockdown in 2020, said Utti Nair, chief economist at rating agency ICRA. This supports our expectation that GDP will record a double-digit expansion in Q1, she added. Vivad se Vishwas. The substantive rise in inflows could be attributed to dispute resolution scheme Vivad se Vishwas that concluded recently, said Niru Ahuja, partner, Deloitte India. Taxpayers have taken advantage of the scheme and have settled their old disputes and litigation with the Income Tax Department along with depositing their tax dues. This seems to be the main reason for the jump in receipts, she added. The collections from April 1 to June 15 include corporation tax of 74,356 Indian rupees crore and personal income tax inflows, which include the securities transaction tax of 1 Indian rupee and 11 cents lakh crore. The collections in the year earlier period totaled 92,762 Indian rupees crore. Despite extremely challenging initial months of the new fiscal, the advanced tax collections for the first quarter of 2021-22 stand at 28,780 Indian rupees crore against advanced tax collections of 11,714 Indian rupees crore for the corresponding period of the immediately preceding financial year, showing a growth of approximately 146%, the Finance Ministry said. The advanced tax kitty includes 18,358 Indian rupees crore as corporation tax and personal income tax of 10,422 Indian rupees crore. This amount is expected to increase as further information is received from banks, the ministry added. NCLT doubts Videocon plan confidentiality. Press Trust of India New Delhi. NCLT has raised doubts over confidentiality of the liquidation valuation of assets of Videocon Industries and 12 group firms during the insolvency process. The tribunal asked the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India to examine this issue in depth to ensure that the confidentiality clause is followed without any compromise. The liquidation value of Videocon Industries and 12 group firms was 2,568.13 Indian rupees crore and fair value of the assets was 4,069.95 Indian rupees crore. The bid submitted by resolution applicant Twinstar Technologies in the resolution plan was for 2,962.02 Indian rupees crore. India to have 330 MN 5G connections by 2026, 4G count to touch 830 MN, Ericsson. Special Correspondent Bengaluru. 5G will represent about 26% of mobile subscriptions in India at the end of 2026 with an estimated subscription base of 330 million, according to Ericsson Mobility Report. Also, 4G subscriptions are expected to rise from 680 million in 2020 to 830 million in 2026, increasing at a CAGR of 3%. The number of smartphone subscriptions, that stood at 810 million in 2020, was expected to touch more than 1.2 billion by 2026. COVID-19 has accelerated India's digital transformation as consumers increasingly rely on digital services to fulfill their business or personal needs, said Nitin Bansal, head of Ericsson India and head of Network Solutions for Southeast Asia, Oceania, and India, Ericsson. The average traffic per smartphone user in India has risen from 13 GB a month in 2019 to 14.6 GB in 2020. This may to grow to about 40 GB in 2026. Total mobile data traffic in India has grown from 6.9 EB/month to 9.5 EB/month in 2020. Thank you. Thank you so much for watching this video as a podcast. Do like, share and comment. Press the subscribe button and hit the bell icon to get new notifications. Thank you. Take care and stay safe. God bless you all. Jai Ma Bharti. To download news and editorials in MP3, follow us on Telegram, Virtual School. The link is provided in the description below.